Hey, man.
Well, we need to talk some baseball or something, don't we?
I guess so.
Youth ball. People coming back at it, getting back into it.
Yeah.
I'm coaching a team, Pat, finally, after much trying.
I know.
Had a whole week of practice last week. It was pretty fun.
Do you, we were doing the podcast here because you had that pent up energy, the coaching energy that you're talking about. Do you feel like any of that's released?
Absolutely.
Yeah, are you feeling good right now? It's like less stress, just a little bit more happy that you got a week of coaching in.
It's the truth. Yeah. Yeah, that happens.
Well, let me tell you what I've been doing for the past week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because I haven't released any of my pent up energy. I've been scheduling and organizing teams for a little summer league in southeastern Ohio. So,
well, you're at your best when you're doing that, aren't you? That's your thing, isn't it? You like that?
I absolutely hate it.
Do you really? You're really good at it, though.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, what if you're really good at something and it benefits people, but you really don't enjoy it that much? That's a tough situation, isn't it?
That's a nice topic someday. That'd be a nice topic for that could be a topic for a number of things.
Yeah. Yeah, you could fit that into a lot of things for sure.
You could fit that in. Yeah, I mean, especially, a career. There are a lot of people out there who probably have a career right now that benefits people, but they may not like it. They may not enjoy it. And they're probably really good at it. Yeah, it's that tension, that awkwardness between what you're meant to do versus what you want to do, I guess. Yeah,
I guess I shouldn't say I hate it. The product, I'll appreciate the product, and when a bunch of kids are able to play, and I'll be happy then. But it's a lot of work, and it
is.
It's a little stressful for me.
It's a lot of work, but it's a whole different type of a lot of work this year, right? I mean, you don't have certain fields or. There's no certainty.
But that it almost makes it easier. Me and my wife, we've done this for a few years now for the youth league in our area, and
you guys work as a team? Chastity help you?
Yeah, normally it's the other way. Normally she's the one that is doing what I'm doing now, and then I'll be help her double check it. Yeah, but now I kind of took the lead on this, and she's going to double check me. So, but we work together on it.
That's cool.
That's what she's good at.
Okay. Yeah, my wife's the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. She's a great team mom and organizer. Well, she was the athletic boosters president at Athens High School for about 4 or 5 years. And
right. Yep.
That was right up her alley, that kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah. But so we're playing baseball again. Finally.
Almost. Yeah. Well, the state of Ohio is. I mean, heck, I saw some travel teams on, what was the first day we were permitted to play was May 26th. And lo and behold, I get on Twitter and I see posts of 10-year-old travel teams out there playing games. Very first day. Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I actually know. Well, it worked. There hasn't been a lot of reports of it being a bad thing, so I think that's a big positive. I'm a little guarded. I know there's a lot of people out there that are still hesitant and are worried that, bringing people together in a location like this is going to have some negative outcomes, but I'm optimistic that it will not.
Yeah.
I'm certainly like so far it hasn't. So.
I'm with you. I'm certainly optimistic that it will not have negative outcomes in the context of the coronavirus, especially with the data that we have. We now have some data, right? I mean, we actually have some. When this thing first started, we didn't have much data, and we didn't really know what we were dealing with, and all we had to go on was what was going on in Italy and big cities. And so I get it. I get the shutdowns and things like that. But now the data has we've had time. We've been able to see that, okay, we've slowed this thing down by the actions we've taken. Hopefully that's the case. Or we were just wrong, one or the other. I mean, because the numbers are extremely different than what was projected. And so now that we have that, I'd be like, okay, I think we need to go, okay, play ball, play ball.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm not nearly as concerned, especially because of the lack of effect that this thing seems to have on kids, young kids. And so get them out there and what's that?
Not just young kids, but
well, yeah.
I mean,
yeah, healthy people, healthy people.
Yeah. I mean, the average age is up there. So, I mean, kids can obviously still carry the virus as they can any other virus. So right. The logic behind it, but I don't think that's
the argument that comes
is
those kids are going to go home and they're going to give it to grandma and grandpa and all that as well. You wouldn't believe the number of grandma and grandpas I've heard. I mean, Gibby alluded to it too. And we talked to him a few weeks ago that have said, guys, I will volunteer to stay home and quarantine myself. I'm an old person. I'm an unhealthy person. I let these kids play. I've heard so many old people say that. Have you?
I've heard, older people say, hey, we're not worried about it.
I know.
Let's go back to.
And that's obvious when you go out. It is.
Yeah,
it's obvious when you go out, and what do you see? Elderly people everywhere, and they never stayed in. Not a lot of them never stayed in. A lot of them have. I mean, we're making broad, sweeping generalizations, but we're only stating our experience here where we live too, and that's what we've seen. But anyway, sure. To go back to the question about what could be unsafe about it, I'm not nearly as concerned about the COVID aspect of getting back out on the field and playing, but what I am concerned about is a lot of these kids. Not every one of them. I mean, you're going to be coaching a team where, and I asked this question the very first night that we got together with our team. That first night we had 11. Now we're up to 15. I have someone that keeps sending me players, but yeah, we asked for them. We need depth. This if there's ever a time to have depth, it's going to be this summer. The compacted season that we're having.
That's true.
With very little preparation time. So we had 11 kids there, and I asked them, raise your hand if you have at that time it was 11 weeks. We're on 12 weeks now of doing nothing. 12 weeks from the time they shut us down. So last week, the beginning of last week, it was 11 weeks. It may have been 12 last week. I don't know. I think it was 11.
Don't ask me. I've definitely lost track.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of time. I said, how many of you have been what I would consider to be moderately active? You've thrown once or twice a week. You've gotten out and run or walked or done some exercise, or you've had the opportunity to lift weights. And I had one kid raise his hand, and he kind of raised it a little bit halfway. He's like, well, I haven't thrown every week, and I haven't run all the time, and I haven't lifted weights, but I've like helped my dad do chores and things like that. And so I knew, man, so when I finally got down to brass tacks and we started saying, okay, be honest with me, how much activity have you done? The majority of those kids hadn't done a daggone thing. And I don't blame them. They didn't know what was going on. They were devastated too. They had lost a bunch of stuff, during during this entire school, last half of the school year. And so I knew, I looked at Coach Hewitt and said, we're going to have to adjust some things here in the way we approach practice. We're going to have to really back off of them when we see the very first thing we noticed on the very first night. I mean, it was hot too. So it was like 87 when we were out there, was we do a dynamic warm up. They get there. And we had little meeting, kind of meet and greet time. We did a dynamic warm up, which is an activation type of warm up, activating the muscles. And then they started throwing. I put them through a throwing progression. And while they were throwing, after the dynamic warm up, some of them were like, daggone, I'm worn out. They were winded. They needed water. One kid, just after the dynamic warm up and the throwing, I had one kid who came over and his face was white as a ghost, and he said, I kind of feel like I'm going to throw up. And I said, well, if you need to, go over there, in the woods and throw up. And he didn't. He kept sipping water and he recovered himself. But we really backed off the practice plan. And my thought was, I saw a tweet today this was the same day, May 26th. I thought to myself, I saw a tweet today of people playing games.
Yeah.
The kids I had were not ready to play games. In fact,
I hear you.
We're going to practice for 3 weeks before we play a game, actually.
and who knows, how many of those kids were able to practice and get to throwing. And I don't know really what
right. I don't either.
From like a softball perspective, I know the underhanded throw is a more natural throw, but we're not even talking about pitching necessarily.
Not at all. Yeah.
From a catcher, third base, any long throw, especially when you're out of shape. Mm-hmm. And when I say out of shape, I mean game shape.
Right.
You're not used to just.
Well, and it's out of everything shape. Because I asked him, I said, it's one thing. I said, we got to treat this like February 23rd, the very first day of baseball practice.
Yeah.
But the difference in the first day of baseball practice on a normal year is most of those kids have either been in the weight room in the months prior, they've been playing basketball,
yep,
or they've been doing other things. They've not been it's unprecedented. They've not been just sitting in their house playing video games, and that's all. And it is a completely different feel for them right now. Every single one of them by Wednesday were moaning and groaning about their sore muscles. And so it took longer to actually get them warmed up because of that. One kid was like, I couldn't even sit on the toilet, man. My butt was so sore.
And these are the types of things that coaches are going to have to think about as we go into games. Because we're saying we're willing to do whatever it takes to be able to play. We'll social distance, and we'll keep away from each other in the dugouts. We won't give high fives. We won't celebrate. Touch each other. We'll stay away from each other. But part of those guidelines that we have to follow, Coach, we talked about this a little bit. Kind of before this all happened, we talked about it in correlation with the high school baseball season in Ohio being postponed for a period of time.
Yeah.
And, how we thought at that time that, we'd be starting in a few weeks, but it would be a few weeks that the kids hadn't been throwing, and then we just jump right into it as if they've been throwing. And we were worried about that. We were concerned about that. That same concern's still here. And I hope that coaches out there, in their brain, when they're saying, well, we'll do whatever it takes to be able to play, take note that, for the safety of their players, they're going to have to coach games and they're going to have to coach practices a little bit different, especially at this time of the year, than what they would, but even more so, throughout the season, a little different than what they would, because, pitchers aren't going to be able to throw as many innings at this point in the year as they normally would. And that's dangerous. So you get them out there, you get them throwing, and it's easy to slip up there if you're not very careful.
I was listening to a podcast this past week. It was a podcast. It was Eric Cressy's podcast for Cressy Performance. He works out a lot of baseball players, and he actually had a podcast. It came out, I think, this past Monday on May 25th or 26th, Tuesday perhaps. And it was actually on this topic of how to bring kids back to baseball safely. And he started out, with talking about professionals, because he works out professional players, MLB players, and minor league players. And he says, if we get a chance to play, which who knows if that's going to happen, how can we do it safely? And then he kind of worked his way down to the other leagues, the travel teams and the youth teams and things. And one of the interesting things he said was, for the leagues that have come back, in some other countries, there have been other sports that have come back and they're playing. I think there's some soccer being played somewhere, and we know that the Korean baseball organization, the KBO league, they've been playing. And he said they've been playing long enough now that we've been able to get some data on injuries that have occurred. And he said it's interesting. For example, in the KBO, since we're interested in baseball, the injuries have not been those the typical injuries that you would see in athletes that do explosive things. Like the most explosive movement in all of sports is throwing a baseball. I mean, that arm speed, that arm action is the most violent action. I mean, people would argue, football guys would argue, oh, no. But no, it's the truth. That is the
maybe most unnatural.
It's exactly right. Oh, the overhand throw, as violent and as fast as it is, and the small muscles that it is utilizing to do that around the rotator cuff, those, and the elbow, the ulnar oh gosh,
You had it, didn't you?
I know.
Unicollateral?
Yeah, the unicollateral ligament in the elbow. Yeah. Is that right? I don't know. We're saying it Southeast Ohio style. Anyway, that's not where the injuries. Cressy is saying, I'm predicting those aren't the injuries we're going to see. Now we may see some of those, but he said we see those anyway, and a lot of those come from being, the arms being stretched out a little bit and overuse. He said you don't see those with those kinds of injuries with coming back into something too soon. I mean, or not being prepared, not having your muscles prepared. He said, like, for example, tearing your ACLs in your knees and things like that. Those are explosive movements that we see with athletes that are in perfectly good shape. They've been working out, they're strong, they've been playing all year, and just something freaky happens like that. You see pitchers are strong, they've been pitching a lot, and then they tear the UCL. He said,
Right.
He said, what we're seeing and what they're seeing in those legs are the soft tissue injuries, pulled groins, pulled hamstrings, things like that are those kinds of things where our bodies just are not yet prepared to do those kinds of things. And he said it's interesting. Those are the things that they're reporting right now that they're seeing at a little bit higher rate. And he said the more athletes we bring back into playing, he said I fear that there's not going to be any way for us. He said what we have done in this long lockdown period has created something where we're so eager to get back, and he said I fear we're not going to be able to do anything about it. It's just going to happen. We're going to have to get ready for it. There's going to be a lot of those kinds of things.
I'd say I feel like what you're saying is that there needs to be a little bit, because as we rush back to the baseball and softball fields, on our minds is hitting and throwing and catching and things like that, and really we probably need to spend a lot of time thinking about just overall conditioning and the strength and agility of our players, as they come back onto the field after a long layoff. And like you said, it's very important to remember this isn't just a break that they've taken. This. They just didn't step away from the game for a short period of time. They've really, most kids have really just not been doing anything. They've been playing a lot of Xbox. At least I know mine have.
Yeah.
So their muscles are weaker than they normally are. Mm-hmm. Their endurance is lesser than it normally is. And when you combine those things right there, it doesn't take too long to get into a very dangerous situation as far as those types of injuries that you're talking about.
Yeah, patience is going to be required, and I'm afraid that we're not going to have any. I've seen a lot of posts where people are saying, "Well, listen, my patience has run out. It's time to get back out there." Things like that. I fear that because I feel that in myself. But we still need to have that kind of patience. I mean, if you think about it. If you I'm trying to think of a good example of this. It's like learning to walk again, doing all the major, the fine motor skills and things like that again. We've sat down for so long that it's almost like, someone, this might be a terrible example, but it's like someone going into a coma for 10 weeks and they're just laying there, right? And then they wake up and what's the first thing they notice? My muscle tissue and my motor skills are not the same as what they used to be.
Well, it doesn't even have to be that bad. If anyone's ever spent the weekend in a hospital, in a hospital bed or a week in a hospital bed, they know the feeling when you get up out of that bed to go home. Yeah, you've been cleared to go home. Everything's okay, but everything doesn't feel okay. You're nowhere near 100%.
Yeah,
walking out the door in most cases. So
yeah. So I guess
we're gonna have to be real careful about that.
Yeah, that's the word to coaches right now. If you're getting a chance to play, we know you're excited. I'm with you. I'm excited. But one of the things I'm really doing is being careful, being cautious. And I've told all of our families, look, we're going to carry more kids on our roster than what we normally would for this age team in a summertime of where we're only going to play. We're only playing like 21 games or so. Like 20, I got 20 games on the schedule plus a tournament. So depending on how far we go there, but that's in a month's time. So that's a lot of games in a month's time. Mm-hmm. And so I've told them, look, I told them this. I said, everybody gets nervous when you say, oh, we're going to carry 16 kids on a roster and things like that. And I don't know if people are nervous, but I know human nature. I know parent nature, like the first thing people think about
if you
is
said that last year,
yeah,
it'd be hard to convince people,
right.
A lot of people to join a team like that.
Right. Cause the first thing they think about is, well, I mean, somebody's going to be sitting the bench all the time then, and things like that. And so one of the things I said was, look, I'm going to guarantee you that that all of these kids are going to get better this summer from this experience through both practices and games. And to me, the way they approach practice, and to me, the goal of it for this summer is to help them get better, to fill in something that they were not going to have otherwise. And so any little bit of experience you get this summer at all is going to make you better coming into whatever season you're looking forward to next year. And that's part of it. The other part of it is this. We're not going to have a pitcher throw a complete game. Yeah. We're probably it's just not going to happen. And so every game we go into, I'm going to have a list of 3 pitchers that are going to pitch that game. And it's going to be my priority to make sure that we keep a close eye on those pitch counts. We keep a close eye, and it's not just about the pitch count number. It's different for every kid. Some kids are in better shape than others, and their arms can handle more.
Yep. You got to watch how they look, how
exactly.
they feel.
You got to keep talking with them and pay attention to them. And I've told them, look, I want to have enough kids that if you pitch today and you've thrown, let's say, more than 50 pitches today, you're probably not going to play tomorrow. You're going to rest tomorrow. We're going to have you on a program where you're going to throw a bullpen tomorrow and you're going to run a little bit. We're going to do some things with you, but we're not going to stick you out there to play shortstop or to play left field after you've pitched the day before, because you're not going to feel good enough to do that. And the only way we can do that is if we carry enough people to not have to do that. And a lot of kids aren't used to that kind of thing. I mean, honestly, that's the way baseball should be played, I think. I mean, that was always my goal even in high school, to have that kind of depth. Not everybody is able to have that kind of depth, but if you're able to have that kind of depth, by all means do it. Teach people how to be part of a team. Sometimes the greatest role that you can have on a team is not being on the field. And I want to, and we've talked about that a ton on here. And that's one of the goals that I have this summer in carrying that many players, is to help them all learn to love every aspect of the game. And being out there on the field is the funnest aspect of it, but it's really a small part of it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's a good word. I think, I don't know that every coach, I know that every coach doesn't feel that way or think that way. And whether, they don't buy into that philosophy or they're just ignorant to it. There's a lot of things you can teach kids on the pitch. You don't just have to be running drills or coaching third base and talking to base runners to be teaching players about the game. And a lot of times you learn a lot more about the game from that perspective than you do on the field. There's things that you just don't pick up on.
That's exactly
you don't
right.
understand how the cogs work there. So I hope that as coaches go into the season, as parents go into the season, one, they're grateful that we get a chance to play, because for a long time we were very uncertain that we were going to get the chance to play. And we talked about if you had a choice between taking the worst scenario that you can think of as far as being in a game and being cheated or whatever it was, that you'd probably accept that right now, because we don't get to play baseball or softball. I hope that parents remember that, and I hope that the players that remember that. And on the flip side of that, I hope going in that coaches remember that hey, I like to win. There's no game I play that I don't want to win. But at the same time, winning doesn't really mean as much this summer as it typically does. I don't think so, outside of maybe personal preference. I think
I agree with that.
Yeah, the plan to go in, and I love what you said there. That you're going to have 3 starters essentially. You're going to have 3 guys that you're going to use, and I hope at the lower levels, your team is a 16U, 17U team or something like that. I hope that
got a good
12U. Yeah, you got, but they're older kids. They're high school kids. Let's say.
Right, underclassmen. Right.
Yeah, and at the 12U level, at the 10U level, 8U level, that coaches go into it, with the idea that, hey, we're going to get as many kids as we can into this game, and because hey, it's an opportunity for him to play. We didn't think we were going to have it, and then off of that, I hope that they learn that you can leverage that type of philosophy every year.
Yeah, but once you build that, there's no greater thing to build in the mindset of people than this what we're talking about right now, because there's nothing that destroys a team worse than, well, let's just say it like it is, having someone say something to you like this. Well, I don't want my kid to get thrown on a team just to sit the bench. You ever had that? You ever had that happen?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Everybody has. I'd say every youth league director has probably heard that line once or twice. You know what that tells me? Man, you just really don't get it fully, what it means to be part of a team. And it's so unfortunate that our kids hear us say things like that. And I understand. You sign up so that you can play. It's the most fun you'll have is when you're playing. I get that. But man, there's just so much. I guarantee you this, 20 years later, the thing your kid's going to be talking about the most, that they remember about that team the most, is not going to be the stuff that they do on the field. It's not. It's not, because my kids are there, and they're not talking about that stuff anymore. Yeah. And my kids had some wonderful experiences on the field. They played all the time. But you know what they don't talk about those things anymore. They talk about the friendships, the values, the things that they were taught, about the game and about life, it is. There is no greater thing that you could instill in your kids and in your teams than this whole understanding that there's so much more to it that you could learn if you want to be. I actually said this. I said this in to all of the kids the other night. I said, look, I want you to have a hunger to learn this game, because you're going to get so much better at it if you become a smarter baseball player, if you understand what is happening. And the truth is, there are some kids, a lot of times the kids that don't understand very much about the game are the ones that play all the time. Just to be really honest.
Absolutely. That's what I was talking about.
You ever watch the old Bad News Bears? Yeah, it is. It's exactly what you're saying. The Bad News Bears. Remember old Ogilvy? Never played at all. Sat there beside Coach Buttermaker with the clipboard with his glasses on, and he kept the stats, and he had all the probabilities and things like that. And then Buttermaker asked him to go in the game, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't know I can't do it." And Buttermaker's like, "Ogilvy, you didn't spend all your life sitting on a dugout bench, did you?" He said, "You know more about this game than anyone in here. Get out there and grab a bat and go hit." And it's true. You will learn so much more about the game, and you're going to be a smarter player. And I told them, look, to be a smart base runner, for example, you don't have to be the fastest kid. You got to know how to read pitchers. You got to know how to read the ball off the bat. You got to know, and the only way that you're going to be able to do that is if you pay attention when you're in the dugout. When you're in the dugout, when you're not playing. That's a great point. Yeah,
I hate when people say I'm too slow to play outfield.
It has nothing to do with it. Has nothing to do with it. I shouldn't say nothing. Has a little bit to do with it, but not as much as you think.
It's part of the equation, right? I mean, it makes it easier. If you got a lot of speed, then there's a wider error margin on the way that you read the ball off the bat. But it's not the end all,
right? We're not saying that. Hey, everybody knows your best athletes are going to be on the field. As far as starting the games and things like that, the better athletes are going to be the ones that are going to be out there most of the time. But the thing is, that's not the total picture. Sure. And if you are in the category of, you might not be the most athletic kid, but you want to get better and you want to create more opportunities for yourself, the thing that you need to be hungry and excited about is any opportunity you can to learn more about the game, so that when your opportunity comes, you show, wow, this kid's a player. He's a gamer. Well, why is he a gamer? Because he understands. He understands how to read a pitcher. He understands how to read a ball off the bat. He's aggressive out there. He's more aggressive than my better athlete is. So let's give this kid more chances. And I'm telling you, that has come true in a lot of kids' lives in my high school coaching career. They've been able to give themselves opportunities because of that, because they became a student of the game.
Absolutely.
Be a student of the game.
No.
Hey, we got coaches who are students of the game, and they Pat, we've had some emails come to us. Have you noticed that? You check our Coaching Life podcast email address?
Yes, every once in a while. Sure.
Yeah. It's if you want to email us, then you can do that at, what is our email address?
Well, I think we just have separate emails.
It's coming.
My email is patrick_martin@yahoo.com.
Yeah, that's right. But we have a coaching life. It's actually, I think it's real long though. It's like the coaching life podcast @gmail.com. So I guess
Is that where we're getting?
Yeah.
Emails?
If you know, you didn't even know that, did you? If you know the name of our podcast, which is the Coaching Life Podcast, then just put @gmail.com on the end of it and you can send us an email, and you and I both should get it. I think I got it set up to come to my normal email. So I don't know, but we've gotten some emails, and we got an email recently from a gentleman named Byron from Boulder, Colorado, I believe. So, one of the cities in Colorado. So Byron has asked us, he said he found our podcast and just wanted to say thanks for all the information we're giving. And we appreciate you reaching out to us, Byron. And we, it's kind of makes us excited, to think that hey, cool. We're making some friends in other states, and that's kind of a cool thing. But he said that he's a volunteer coach for a girls softball team in a city rec league. Their ages 12 to 14. And he's by himself. Yeah. And he said, do you guys have any advice for how to run an effective team practice if I am the only coach with a bunch of 12 to 14-year-old kids? And first of all, Byron, thanks so much for reaching out to us. And we hope that we can maybe provide a little help, an answer to that. What do you think, Pat?
Well, I think it's very relevant because I know just in putting together or helping put together the league that I am, there's a lot of people that are just stepping up and saying, okay, I'll coach a team. Mm-hmm. And they don't have anyone to help them. They're just saying, yeah, we'll do it. So, I know there's a good possibility that they'll be out there by themselves. But, I don't, just to keep it general, Coach, I think that it's easy to do this, because we've talked about too, having practice plans and whatnot. But I think the most important thing, especially this year, is that you stay basic, and you do the things that you're going to do every game that you play. And I think that starts with throwing and catching. Mm-hmm. It can't be said enough that a large portion of a baseball or softball practice should be focused on simply throwing the ball and catching the ball. And if you do that over and over again, from different angles, running, going backwards, going sideways, that all adds up, mm-hmm. To help you in a game. And it's something that you got to be good at,
Well, think about it like this.
At baseball and softball.
Think about it like this. How many games have you lost? Well, a lot. I've lost a lot. And of all those losses that we've had in the game of baseball or softball, how many of those could you point back to this? Had we thrown the ball better, or had we made a couple plays catching the ball, receiving it, or fielding it better, we would have won that game.
Yeah.
Almost every single loss you have comes down to throwing and catching, right? It's the most important fundamental. Teams that it's the most basic thing. Teams that can throw it and catch it the best are the teams that win the most games. Granted, you have to hit. But I tell you what, you could hit all day long, but if you go out there and you can't throw it and catch it very well, the other team's going to be able to hit. They don't have to hit. They can just put it in play and they'll beat you. And that's it. And so what you're saying in terms of keeping it basic, I think we have to keep it basic, but we also have to rearrange our mindset as to when the practice begins. One of the things that frustrates me the most, and this is one of the first things I said when we stepped on the field the other night, is I said, guys, there's this misconception that the things that we do right here at the beginning, this dynamic warm-up and then our throwing, is a warm-up for when practice is beginning. And I said, you need to understand that as long as you're playing with me, that's not going to be the case. Practice begins the moment you tie your cleats and you take off to run out to the pole to begin our dynamic warm-up. I said, this is not a warm-up. This is practice. And the way you handle yourself during this time, and I could do this if I'm alone. I'm out there standing by them. I'm not. I had an assistant coach and some dad coaches helping, or dad volunteers helping. But I said, I want you to understand, we take this as seriously as the stuff we're going to be doing here in about 35 minutes down there on the field. So understand that this is not a warm-up. This is practice. A lot of times when kids are out there throwing, coaches are shooting the bull down by the dugout, and they're not paying attention because and what happens is we build in these kids a mindset that, well, this is just pre-practice stuff. This is just screw around time. And it's not. And what's happened is we're ignoring the most important aspect of the game. So coach, if you're by yourself and you're out there in the outfield and you got a bunch of kids 12 to 14 years old, truthfully, the best thing you could have them to do is, like Pat says, throw it and catch it and become the best team in your league that can do that. And you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right.
Yeah, be intentional about it, because if the scenario you just gave was perfect. Coaches away from the players are out there just lobbing the ball, throwing it off balance. And what they're doing is they're practicing. What's the old saying, or new saying, I guess say? Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent, right? So they're practicing
mistakes,
incorrect fundamentals,
right?
In their throwing and catching. So they're not
getting
better,
worse.
They're getting worse.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
You
better off not having practice if you're just going to do that. That's exactly right. So I'd say, you're hit the nail right in the head. Don't overcomplicate it. Do things. If you're the only guy out there, then do things that that are going to help all the kids. And obviously, if you need to have a girl throw a bullpen, then maybe say, hey, there's always parents hanging around these days. I mean, nobody just has a team where every single person gets dropped off and the parents all leave. If you ever have a team, if anybody has a team like that, write us and let us know, because I guarantee you it's not happening in America right now. There are parents that hang around, and I'm okay with that because I use them. And I actually asked him the other night. We had our BP session, and you asked Dustin. Dustin even got out there. One of the guys that helped. He just kind of opened the field for us. He's like, "I'm going to hang around." I'm like, "Well, if you hang around, I'm going to put you to work." And so he's out there in center field behind all the players, being part of our shagger group that we have. And the shaggers, the kids were playing defense during BP. I wanted them getting reads on the ball and getting a beat on it. And if they made the play, great. But if they didn't, they let it go so they can be ready for the next ball that's hit. Well, when they let it go, you have to have some shaggers out there. I don't want the kids being shaggers. And so we had volunteer parents go out there and just shag balls and put them in a bucket, and then bring them back to me or whoever was throwing BP. And so I think if you have parents there that are willing to be utilized, then do that. Utilize them and make sure that you just are really clear about how you're utilizing them. You're not asking them to be a coach. You're not asking them to wear a whistle. You're not asking them to get the T-shirt with coach on the back, or you're not going to say, hey, I want you to come out here and coach a base during the game. You're simply wanting them to volunteer to help prepare the kids in practice. And I think that's a good way to utilize parents that are there and willing.
It's a good way to build culture too.
It is. Yeah. It really is.
It becomes a community thing, and everyone has a little bit of an ownership stake in the team.
Right.
At that point, not just their player.
Yeah. If you have a mom come and catch a bullpen, it may not be for her own daughter, right? It's going to be for somebody else's kid. And that's a good thing. It's a really good thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So hopefully that, that kind of thing helps. I mean, we didn't go into detailed practice plans, but I know, honestly, I've been the only coach on a team before, but I've never done it alone, because I have gone out and I've realized that, look, if you got 12 or 14 kids on this team and I'm the only coach, I'm really not going to do this team justice if I continue to be the only coach. And so I have a team meeting right off the bat at the very beginning and say, look, I'm going to be calling upon some parents to help in practice. I'm not asking you to be a coach. I'll give you exactly what I need you to do. Be extremely detail oriented. That way it makes it so much simpler for the parents to say yes. And I'm going to utilize you in these areas. And I just need you to watch over here. I need to go over here. We got kids over here hitting off the tee into a net. And I just need you to make sure that they got their helmets on, they're being safe, and that they're doing exactly what I want them to do in this way, because I can't be over there at this time. But that's the best thing that I could say is get some more eyes out there. Do whatever you can to get some more eyes out there.
Yeah, and do that work up front so you don't have to do it on the fly, because when you're out there during practice and you're trying to put that together, it makes things that much more difficult.
Yeah,
so,
right.
Try to plan it out as much as you can and reach out to those people ahead of time.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, the best.
And always strength and agility things. You can do a lot of, you don't have to pick up a bat and a glove to make yourself a better baseball player, softball player, a better team. You can do a lot of, there's a lot of strength and agility stuff out there that you can do.
Oh, heck yeah. Right there at the practice. Right there at the ballpark.
Just as one person. Yeah.
Right. You can do body squats and walking lunges, and you can do plyometrics, and they can go out there and do bursts, short bursts of, sprints, things like that. There's all kinds of things they could do. Yeah. Yeah. I tell you, if you go back to, I don't know what episode it was. I think it was one of our first 3 episodes or so, where I talked about an effective batting practice, a way to run a batting practice. If you're by yourself and you want to run a good batting practice, you legitimately could do that by yourself. I don't remember. Do you remember what episode that was, Pat?
I don't. I feel like it was right after the player development program, but it might be part of it.
It might have been one of those. Yeah, the ones that say PDP at the beginning. I think Byron said he's up to episode 14, so he's probably already heard it. So if you go back and listen to that, that's actually something that you could do by yourself, because you've got different. You've got like 6 different groups, but 2 or 3 of them are playing defense. So they're behind you if you're the one pitching BP. And then you've got a hitting group, a base running group, and you've got a group of kids. Maybe they're over there practicing bunting, behind the backstop, or they're getting ready, mentally prepared. They're understanding what it's like to be on deck and things like that. But there are ways. You've got everybody together right there, and you could run a really effective. It wears you out. Well, be ready. If you do it right, Coach, it's going to wear you out.
But I think the key to that drill is, 3 to 5 swings.
Yes.
Rotate.
Yes.
And and just keep going. Make it quality. Make the swings quality, not quantity. And you can focus. You can do that drill a couple different ways. You can focus on the infield with the outfielder shagging, and you can focus on the outfielders with the infielder shagging.
Yeah. If you don't have enough to have shaggers, that's right. That's right. You could do that. Right. Be creative with it. So let us know what you do. Write back to us and let us know how it works, and we'll talk about it.
And it's good to talk baseball,
man, isn't it?
Baseball and softball season, isn't it?
Yeah, finally.
Coach, I'll be honest with you. Closing here, I felt like when we came into this thing that there'd be a point that I'd be able to say, "Hey, we made it through," and we're not there yet. I don't know how that's going to materialize in the next few months. I really don't. I don't know that there is going to be a day, but at some point, I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that at some point in the next year, we'll be able to say, okay, we're past the coronavirus. But
I got a feeling it's going to be one of those things where it slowly works its way back. We kind of slowly work our way back to just getting back to life, and then we realize, oh, I guess we're pretty much back at it now. And I'm going
to make a point though that happens, because I feel so unfulfilled with that in mind.
Yeah, I do too.
I wanted that victory. You know what I mean? I wanted the vaccine.
Okay, everybody. Today's the day. Yes. Go out there. Yeah. Wouldn't it be awesome if it was like July 4th? No, that's too long from now. Memorial Day. We've already had Memorial Day. Yeah. Yeah. But I hear you. We all want that, and we all need that as well. We really need it. All right.
Good luck, everyone. Hope you have a good season, what you can, and
yes,
be safe.
Pat, we're going to end this podcast with be safe.
No, I wasn't done.
Okay.
I got one.
You know how I feel about be safe.
I don't. You come up with a quote every day that you're tired of hearing.
I don't like unprecedented, uncertain times.
Amid.
Be safe. Amid. How many times have you heard the word amid during all this?
I like that. I liked the word before it was cool. Okay, so
listen.
I've got the phrase. Are you ready to end it? Are we ready to say goodbye?
Yeah.
Have you said what you said?
It's the old left-hander rounding third and headed for home. You know who that was?
All right. Well, you kind of jumped the gun, because I was going to say
I'm not a left-hander, so I can't say that. That's Joe Nuxall's quote. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
All right.
My close is this: play ball.
Yes.
Good talking to you, Coach.
Yeah, buddy.